5 years of DBN, 6 boards in Boston, and 7 days of chaos. I'm David Hood, and this is Deadline, DBN's monthly news program. Dateline, August 2025. For our feature story, it was 5 years ago this summer that both this show Deadline and the Diplomacy Broadcast Network itself were born. We've covered a bevy of face-to-face tournaments, extended deadline finals, and virtual leagues. We've counted down 5 seasons of qualification races for the DBN Invitational virtual tournament. We've discussed what's hot, what's not, and debated hobby topics to a two-way draw. Along the way, there's even been a song or two. Later in this program, I'll be joined by co-founders Bryan, Pravel, and Brandon Fogel to discuss the past, present, and future of this little network of ours. But first, a look at headlines from around the world of diplomacy. The vWDC Summer Classic for 2025 is in the books, with Holland's Maaike Blom coming out on top. This 5th running of the virtual tournament, featuring preliminary rounds over the first weekend of August, with the top 7 advancing to a top board the following weekend, it was covered right here on DBN. A total of 47 players participated in the event, ably run once again by Michalis Kamarites on the vWDC Discord server. Interestingly, Maaike's convincing victory on that top board continued the domination of the event by the hobby's female players. If you missed the coverage, a link to that video has been provided. If you played in the event and want more virtual face-to-face action, why not try one of the monthly virtual leagues? You can navigate to the DBN schedule page and look for the links to those leagues available there on the page. One of those leagues, the Virtual Diplomacy League, completed a game day in mid-August with the league lead changing hands. Find out more by viewing our DBN League Night coverage in the link provided. In news from the European face-to-face circuit, the first Norwegian Championship was held in late July in Oslo. Local player Andreas Krohn took top honors, with German player Simon Wiesenrup coming in second, and Dutch player and organizer Jelte Kuiper in third. A week before that, there was a new stop on the tour that is really just a return of one of our hobby's oldest events at ManorCon in Northampton, run by veteran organizer and 2022 World DipCon champ Dan Lester. A certain Nathan Lester won his first tournament ever at ManorCon over longtime face-to-face player Dave Simpson in second, and UK National Championship organizer Bradley Grace taking home the bronze. Lest one think the action has only been in Europe recently, we've also had 2 events on the North American tour that finished in the last few weeks, beginning with the Regatta tournament in Colorado, won by Texan Ed Sullivan over DBN personalities from California, Patrick Jacobson in second, and Adam Silverman in third. And then earlier this month, the Boston Massacre once again took place, with Hunter Katcher winning his first tournament since his victory in the 2019 European Diplomacy Championship. Second and third were taken by Aurora and Caden Towson. Later in the program, we'll actually interview Hunter about how he was able to best his second place showing at last year's Massacre. As far as upcoming face-to-face events goes, there is a busy autumn approaching, so let's dive in, starting with the upcoming North American Championship, the DipCon, in Chicago. The tournament will take place October 3rd through 5th at the Spring Hill Suites near the O'Hare Airport, and it will feature a 4-round championship contest, 2 variant events, teaching demos for newcomers, and much more. This is a must-get-to event, so make your travel plans now. Between now and then, of course, there are plenty of opportunities for face-to-face play worldwide. The last weekend in August will see the Asia Pacific Championship in Brisbane, hosted by the Cane Toad Classic. Then the first week in September comes the Swiss National Championship in Sierre, hosted by Christophe Bourget. Then September 19th through 21st, there's the UK Championship in Warrington, hosted by Bradley Grace. The weekend after the Chicago DipCon, the second weekend in October, comes a new stop on the Asia Pacific Tour, the Flying Fox Fandango in Melbourne. The weekend after that, October 24th or 26th, all eyes will turn to Killington, Vermont for the annual Carnage Diplomacy Tournament, this year featuring face-to-face play of the global variant Imperial. And then November 7th through 9th, attention moves back across the Atlantic to the European Diplomacy Championship to be held in Leiden in Holland. Honestly, there's just about no excuse for you to not attend one of these events over the next 3 months. Navigate to the DBN schedule page for more information. As is obvious from that list of upcoming tournaments, the diplomacy hobby is quite the global phenomenon. Although a lot of international play takes place in the English language, that is not the only lingua franca for hobby activity. A new Discord server was launched for Spanish language play, which we have linked to our show notes. In addition, the 7 Years War Virtual League holds games every month in languages other than English. By the time you see this broadcast, the August 23rd game day will have already taken place, with games scheduled to have been played in French and Polish in addition to English. Going into the game day, that league was led by Jelte Kuiper, with fellow Dutch player Maaike Blom close on his heel. Join in the fun of the 7 Years War using the link at the DBN schedule page. Each month here on Deadline, we'd like to highlight the latest and greatest video, audio, or visual content from those whom we call our DBN media partners. The DiploStrats YouTube channel has released a series of videos covering the play of a variant game. All right, that's pretty much common knowledge, so far so good. Totally normal thing for DiploStrats to do. But no, this particular variant is a chaos version of another variant called the 7 Days of Christmas. Chaos means that each supply center is played by a different power. For the 7 Days of Christmas, there are, count them, 147 different players in a chaos version of this game. As the Brits say, that's barking. You have to see this insanity to believe it. Luckily, you can see it by going straight to their YouTube channel and diving into the coverage. On a slightly less silly note, a recent edition of the hobby's indispensable newsletter Diplomacy Briefing featured, among other things, an outstanding article from Ed Sullivan on just how he won that recent regatta tournament in Boulder, Colorado. Importantly, this particular issue of the briefing was number 300, marking an important milestone in the recent history of our hobby. Check it out using the link provided. How is the top board final for the Nexus Season 9 press tournament going? As of this broadcast, it is indeed still going on, with Cedric Williams England in a strong but not unbeatable position after Spring 1907 was revealed and analyzed on the Diplomats show here on DBN. Do his ally Germany or other powers such as Russia and Turkey, who are allied with each other, do they have a chance to overtake Cedric? Best way to find out is to follow the coverage provided by Keith Worstel and Ed Sullivan. And while you're at it, you can enjoy the spiffy new intro for the Diplomat show that was produced by Hal Shield here for DBN. Episodes will be released every few days until the game ends by its turn limit of 1910, or before that in the event of a draw, or who knows, a solo. In Diplomacy Club news, we have another entrant into the Texas scene with the formation of the Austin Diplomacy Club by Caden Towson and others. The face-to-face hobby in Seattle is reforming with its own new club, the Seattle Sea Lions, organized by Captain Gaming and a few others. In order to keep up with the proliferation of North American clubs, Tanya Gill on the NADF Discord server has been updating the resource channel with permanent links to all the known clubs in North America. Going back across the Pacific, the Melbourne Megabats have burst onto the scene in Australia with the launch of its inaugural face-to-face event, the Flying Fox Fandango, which is coming up in mid-October. If you are not already playing with folk in your own local geographic area, this may be the time to join this rising tide of club play. And if there is no club near you, contact any of the club organizers you can find to give you advice on how to start your own. Among many other places, you can find that information in the Deadline show notes or elsewhere on the DBN website. And now, for a segment of our show we call the Winner's Circle. where we interview a recent tournament or league winner to find out just how they did it and how it feels to come out on top. This month, we check in with Connecticut hobbyist Hunter Katcher about his win earlier this month at the Boston Massacre. Hello, Hunter. Welcome to Deadline.
Hey, thank you for having me.
You got it. You got it. All right. So we're going to talk in a minute about an experience you had in Boston recently. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about how you started playing diplomacy and when.
Yeah, sure. I started in 2012. I was looking for something to do, and I saw a meetup on line and said, "Hey, that sounds like fun. I'll try it out." So went down, met up with the folks, played 3 games as Austria, got absolutely wrecked, and said, "You know what? I think this is the game for me." So just get playing. Really didn't play too much seriously until 2016, 2019 timeframe. And I've taken a lot of time off for COVID, but back in 2025, looking to have some fun.
Well, and I think we're glad to see you back. What do you do when you're not playing diplomacy? What do you do for a living? Where are you physically?
So right now, I'm living in Connecticut. There's a very likely possibility you're going to see me in Texas in a couple months, looking to move down there. And I do a lot of work. And for a while, I was traveling the country in my car, just living, working from home remotely during COVID. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I remember some travel. I think you came to DixieCon one time when you were on the way to something else. So I remember there being some travel. I'm not going to call you a young Ed Sullivan, but it looks like perhaps you are getting there if you're going to move to Texas.
Yeah, I'll hopefully be seeing a lot more of it.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, there's clubs now in Houston and Austin, so you should be able to figure out a place to play diplomacy too, depending on where you're moving to. All right.
Yeah, Caden came to Boston, and it was really fun meeting him and getting to see him start up that club. So,
oh, that is great then. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your experience with Boston Massacre. For example, I don't think this is the first time you've won the event.
Yeah, that's correct. Won a few years ago, maybe 2018, I think it was.
And tell us about your experiences at Boston Massacre in general before we talk about this particular tournament.
Yeah, so I've been going to Boston Massacre for a long time. I'm a New England native, so it's really the closest tournament for me. Been going for Randy was running it for some years ago. Alex has picked it up, so it's really fun because every time you go to a city like Boston, there's tons of historical things to do, lots of good food. So it's really been fun. And over the years, you see the evolution of different players coming in and going, and I love seeing all the new blood coming in and watching those new players get excited with their first taste of the game.
One of the best things about face-to-face diplomacy is in introducing others to the game.
It really is.
Well, tell us how you won this event. Many of us have watched the DBN coverage, but tell us from your point of view how you won.
Yeah, I think for me, a big part of this was building the right alliances. In my first game, I had a lot of options for allies, and I ended up deciding to work with England in this particular game. And we just kept a really solid alliance, trusted each other all the way through. I think that's really solid advice, especially in your first game. You don't want to start rocking the boat with early stabs that might bite you later. So kept that alliance, pushed my ally across the board, ended up helping him get a board top, which was great for my ally. I got a second, very good score, so I was very happy with that. And then the second game that I played, which was the third round, I really spent a lot of time again building partnerships and alliances across the board. The first person that I attacked was Randy in England, and he ended up being willing to janissary for me based on the way our communication went. And I was able to get Russia on my side through some good conversations. And Italy, near the end of the game, he and I were fighting, but we were able to keep on good terms. And when other players started pissing him off, he was willing to say, you know what, I'm going to go the other way because these folks are annoying me more than you. So you build the right friendships and alliances in the game, and that'll help you a lot.
All right. So your advice, be less annoying. That's your advice.
Yeah, don't be annoying.
Well, it sounds like this be less annoying. You could be annoying. You just can't. You have to be less annoying than the people on the other side. Am I getting this right?
Fair enough.
All right. That's sage advice from two-time Boston Massacre winner Hunter Katcher. How would you compare the winning of this event to other tournaments you've done well in? I mean, you won the European Championship some years ago, as I recall. So tell us a little bit about how those experiences were the same or different.
Sure. Well, I guess, man, some of these were years ago. Um,
But you remember them like they were yesterday.
Some of them. I think this was a much more diplomatic victory than some of the other tournaments I've played in. A lot of the and a game that was much more about building strong friendships as opposed to trying to do secret things behind folks' back and having just really solid tactics. Having not played much in the last few years, I feel like my tactics and like general strategy aren't as strong as they used to be, and that really used to play a large part into my games. So I think just finding good ways to connect with people and build friendships on the board really helped in this game. Whereas something like when I won the European Diplomacy Championship, one of the big things that I was able to do is I did do some sneaky conversations behind a few folks' back that aren't as much as my play now. So a little bit of change in my play style.
Well, I think that's a common refrain you hear from players who are successful over the long haul, is they are able to adapt their game to different conditions and, frankly, to how their own view of the game may have changed over time. I mean, I don't know of anybody that looks at the game exactly the same as the first time they played it.
That is true, and actually, I think that's one of the keys to doing well is understanding yourself, how you play, how you think about the game, but also understanding how everybody else in the game thinks about the game individually and as a whole, and being able to adapt your style to each individual as best you can. The better you can do that, the more successful you'll be.
That's good advice. Is there any advice you would give to people who are trying out face-to-face tournaments for the first time? That is a different environment than a pickup game or a virtual game or an extended deadline game. Anything about tournament diplomacy, face-to-face tournament diplomacy itself that you think folks should keep in mind if they're trying it maybe for the first time?
Something I always like to do is book some extra time on the trip, right? Rather than just say, hey, I'm going to arrive 10 minutes before the start and jump off to my flight as soon as the last game ends. And go do some exploring around the city. Have some fun, right? Spend time going to lunch with the other players on the board and getting to know them, because a big part of these tournaments is the game. Yeah, sure, absolutely. But it's also the friendships and the time you spend at the bars together or eating lunch together or just exploring the city together. During Boston Massacre, we went off, checked out Quincy Market for some food, went to the old State House and got to learn some history together. So it was a lot of fun. And I got to know the other players much better because of that.
Well, that certainly makes for a more enjoyable experience in the long run, doesn't it, to establish those kind of off-board relationships?
I really think it does. You don't come back for the game. Well, maybe you do, but you also come back for the friendships, right? There's a lot of people in this hobby who come to these tournaments and don't play any games, or maybe only play one game. They're there to see their friends, right? And I think in the long run, that's what really keeps people around.
And to make new friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, do you have spill some names? Who did you enjoy playing with at Boston Massacre this year, either on the Alliance side or maybe as an opponent?
I really enjoyed playing with everybody that was on the board. Jason, somebody that I always get along with, has been a good ally with me. There were a couple folks named Will that were really fun to play with. Randy is somebody that I've known for a long time. He used to live in the Boston area, ran the tournaments, competed in the Boston area. So I know him really well. And I had a lot of fun playing on the board with him. There's been times in the past where we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I really like playing the game with him this weekend.
I mean, let's be honest. Randy Larnturd is someone that's fun to attack. Am I right or am I right?
Some people think so.
Actually, I love Randy, as everybody knows, and he's really one of the best players on the tour. So having a chance to play with him is always fun for sure. Andrew, any other final thoughts you have for the audience here? Most of whom have never won a tournament. So if you were speaking to them for the first time about what it feels like and how they might figure out how to get to the winner circle themselves, what would you tell
them? I think there's, everybody's coming from a different place, and you really need to learn how to play, your own game, your own way, while also learning from the best. There's a lot of good material out there that people have posted on how to play France the best, or how to do certain alliances, or what alliances work the best together. And, I think if you spend a little time learning about what other people have posted, chatting with other players, seeing what they do, doing a lot of things like maybe play a lot of gunboat games online, and just getting some tactics going to keep the game fresh in your mind when you're not playing. And just always be trying to learn how you can do your tactics better. Try to find ways on how you can communicate and connect with other people better. I know a lot of people don't take it as intensely as some people might study, say, chess. But I know there's a lot of people who really spend a lot of time, working hard to learn and play the game well. And if you put in the time and effort to do that, it'll help you a lot.
That's really good advice. Hunter, where do you think we're going to see you next in terms of tournament diplomacy?
Well, I'm really hoping to head over to the Netherlands in November. It's happening right around my move to Texas, so I don't know if that's going to happen. I need to work out the logistics, but at that, I'm not sure. I would really like to go to the World Diplomacy Championship in Greece next year. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. That's the only one that I have on my definitive calendar, but maybe Cascadia could be on the board. Maybe Whipping next year. We'll have to see.
Well, I hope you do get to go to EDC for lots of reasons, but also if you go to EDC, you can use a great Davy Crockett quote at the end of the tournament. You can say to the people who have stabbed you, you all can go to hell and I'm going to go to Texas. That's what Davy Crockett said right before he went to the Alamo. So you have a chance to follow in the footsteps of one David Crockett.
All right. I certainly hope I have that opportunity.
All right, Andrew, thanks for being on the show, and congratulations again for an impressive second-time victory in the Boston Master.
Thank you, and thank you very much for having me.
And now for our feature presentation. The Diplomacy Broadcast Network just celebrated its 5th birthday. It's time to take stock of where we've been and where we're going through a discussion with DBN co-founders Brandon Fogel and Bryan Pravel. Hey, Bryan. Hey, Brandon.
Hey.
DBN is 5 years old. We need to talk about this.
Can't believe
it. It is kind of hard to believe, but it is absolutely true that DBN started 5 summers ago. So I think it's time for us to pause and reflect a little bit on the history of what we did and why we did it and what it has meant and what we're looking forward to for the future. So why don't we dive into the first topic, which is sort of the prehistory. Before the dawn of time, there was this thing before that called pre-DBN, when when you all actually are thinking about how you might want to do content about diplomacy. So one of you, tell me what you were thinking in the few months leading up to the launch of DBN in June of 2020.
David, last time you had us on Deadline, we kind of teased a little bit. I kind of teased some of my opinions on what the precursor that led up to the Diplomacy Broadcast Network was. But I want to hear, because I've got opinions, I want to hear from Brandon what his perspective is on this.
Yeah, good. Now I'm really excited to hear what you're going to say. Because for me, it was, so the pandemic hit and we all were suddenly online. We were trying to figure out how to play online. And the Minnesota folks figured out how to use Discord channels, voice channels. And they started actually broadcasting one of their league games. And they asked me to GM one of the games. And I was fine to do it. This is, I think, in March or April. It was very, very early in the lockdown period. And they were doing a little broadcast on YouTube, and they asked me to come on and talk about it. And it was fun. And I was like, you know what, we could do this. So I got Siobhan and Chris Martin together and talked to you, David, and you were trying to figure out how to do a virtual DixieCon. I think we might have done a Weasels game, and I think we might have commentated on it. And then that was like the proof of concept. And then David, you figured out how to do a 2-round tournament. And I remember, so Siobhan and Chris Martin and I were on the broadcast. And I remember writing the software for it to download the orders from Backstabber. And I was working on enhancements to the software up until like 10 minutes before we went on air, because we wanted to go live. Like we started, I think an hour after the round started, and we had all the games listed, and I clicked on a button on the screen to switch to each game, and we went just back and forth between all the games. You had like 7 or 8 games going on at least. And we did that. We did one broadcast in the morning.
11 games, but who's counting?
11. Okay. We did them all somehow. And we did one broadcast in the morning and then another broadcast in the evening, just the 3 of us. So there was like 10 hours, 12 hours of content in one day.
It was crazy. It completely blew my mind. I remember, here I am trying to run this event, and I am glued to my screen that night, even though I still had games going. I was glued to the screen watching the content. It was so cool.
It was wild. Sorry, go Bryan.
No, I did a little research. So I wanted to, David, when you said, hey, let's talk about 5 years, it's been 5 years. It's like, well, let's go down memory lane a little bit. So I'm going to bring up a couple of those items, Brandon, that you're talking about. But before we do that, my opinion is that the Diplomacy Broadcast Network, the idea of the Diplomacy Broadcast Network, actually started before that in Weasel Moot 2019. And I'm going to share this photo. And this is the secret sauce right here. And this is why I'm going to argue this was the start. In 2019, we started posting on the Windy City Weasels Twitter account. And we started taking photos of every single board and then uploading that to our website. And then we would post the links through Twitter to the website so that people could follow along. And then we came up with these cards so people could tell what year it was. And you can barely read it, but those said what board and round it was. So then we moved, see how we would rotate the years. And then we would take pictures of our board as it was getting filled out. And that was how people followed along to see what the score was.
That's right.
So here's our board 1, round 1. So, and then we of course uploaded the photos of people playing. And so we just track along. And then we had Mr. Zachary Moore kind of got his, I think he won the event that year. And so we started doing that for some of our club games and things like that. I don't think we were the only one doing this. I know that the Bay Area did this a couple of times. So Siobhan and Adam, I think, both did. And I know that Andrew Goff was very involved with the Twitter community and kind of building some community there. But I remember talking with Brandon during the middle of Weasel Moot 2019 saying, hey, I think there's an audience out there of people that would be interested in talking about diplomacy and commenting on boards. So one of the best parts of post club games or post tournaments is when you sit down, grab a drink, and just chat about the game with everyone. And to me, that was the nexus. That was the seed that was planted. So Brandon, whenever we started going into lockdown and you're like, all right, well, let's find a way to do this. That's what I was reminded of. And if we had not had that experiment, I don't think we would have known there was an audience. And I don't think we would have gone through that. And frankly, some of the people that we shoulder tapped first to come in as analysts were people that were participating in the commentary over website and Twitter. And that's how we got our first crew together.
Oh, that's cool. I remember us planning that, and we created those cards, the little flip cards, precisely because we wanted to have the pictures, and we had tried organizing the pictures for club games afterward, but without knowing which phase it was, it became very hard. Actually, you really had to do a lot of work to coordinate the orders to figure out what picture was which phase. So that was key for that. So that's why you were, when we started talking about DBN, like creating a media entity. So that's why you were primed to like jump on it. Basically.
Yeah. I mean, we knew there was an audience. I didn't know how big an audience there'd be, but we knew there'd at least be like 10 people out there that would be interested in this. And it was the middle of lockdown. And I mean, this is about community. Like, that's what this was all about. We just wanted to find a way to create community in an environment where we could not otherwise have it. And what a great way to do that. And you're talking about those experimentation phase that we went through, going through some of like the Weasels games and things. I did a little more research, and here is our very first broadcast that I could find on the internet anywhere.
Online, we'll get to hear him talk about that in a bit. We've got current NADF president Siobhan Nolan joining us from California, and we'll get to hear him talk about that in a bit. We've got current NADF president Siobhan Nolan joining us from California. We're having a technical problem. We'll get to hear him talk about that in a bit. Somebody has this has the stream open. Current NADF president
Not me.
Somebody has this.
Not me. No.
It was me.
I thought it might be.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Back to it. Oh,
that is quality television right there.
That's great.
Yeah,
it's so great.
I hope we've gotten a little better since then.
A little bit. And then I did want to show a couple more things that you touched on, Brandon, that I completely agree with. This idea of this community and bringing people together.
I'm just happy to see that diplomacy is still happening. Not quite face to face, but sort of almost face to face kind of thing. And no, I think it shows a lot that the hobby is committed enough and has the ability to put something like this together and predict whenever that was, a few weeks ago. And also this show, I mean, this is pretty impressive, really.
So what I wanted to ask both of you about is just, what do you remember about the early days of trying to figure out how to make virtual face-to-face play work?
You mean work on the screen or work during the tournament itself? Because because when I was doing the virtual DixieCon, which was just a wild hair idea that I had, well, if we can't play, I bet we could do something on Backstabber and have a big tournament. I had no idea what I was talking about, just literally no idea. It was just a germ of an idea. And frankly, you guys helped to make it happen, period. And some other guys did too, and Chris and Siobhan. But in those days, it was still a little bit unclear how we were going to negotiate, even in virtual face-to-face. And most of the DixieCon, some of the DixieCon games that year had Discord, but most of them were done with just chat negotiation, but it was still live. It was still 15-minute turns. I didn't really understand how to be a GM. I mean, it was on Backstabber, it was quite a learning curve, but I think we all realized that so what if it doesn't go exactly right? We were just experimenting. We were having fun. We were doing something new. We actually did, if you remember, I did a little video of virtual barbecue in between the two rounds. So we had a first round of 11 games, and the second round was 9 boards. And in between, I had an hour of virtual barbecue. And so I had a couple of guys that were sort of in my pod that were with me in my house, and we sort of took video what we were eating. It was different kinds of barbecue. We told everybody to eat their own kind of barbecue, whatever it was, and talk about it. we talked about it on screen. It was just a way of trying to create community in a place that we didn't have any.
I remember in the very beginning, I was really fixated on having video, and there wasn't a capability to get in and out of video rooms very quickly, and there still really isn't, which is one of the reasons we don't do it. But so what I for Weasel's games, I had a Zoom room going and Discord on the side, so that you could see everyone's faces. And if you were in a Discord channel with somebody, like, you would be able to actually see the audio roughly match up with the video of them. And if you were clever, you could actually try to read people's lips as they were talking in other rooms, which some people had an issue with. I mean, I'm not a lip reader, so it didn't bother me. But I was really, really fixated on it, and tried to really push it for as long as I could with the Weasels. But it was unwieldy. You needed to have Backstabber as well, so there were 3 different applications, and it was too complex, especially for people in face-to-face who were not tech savvy. Which was also an issue for the early tournaments. There were some players who asked everyone to exchange phone numbers before the game in case they had technical problems. They would get on the phone and call people, and that was also too unwieldy to really work. So that's what I remember.
What astounds me really is not how many issues we had and all that. It's how fast we actually coalesced into what is now virtual face-to-face, because by the time you get a few months later into the fall of 2020 and into the vWDC championship in December of 2020, by the time you get to that, it's almost like all this had already all been figured out. Yeah. And it was kind of astounding how something was created that quickly, even though we were talking about a little bit of the growing pains of that. By the time we got to a few tournaments into it, not just the virtual face-to-face was going pretty well, DBN coverage of the virtual face-to-face scene was going really well. I mean, it's improved since then, but it hasn't changed in kind. It's just changed in quality.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brandon, I agree with everything you said, except I did a little bit of research, and we were doing experimentation exactly like you described, but it was not consistently Discord. We were using Slack. We were using Cisco WebEx Spark. We were using Microsoft Teams. Right. So I picked this clip for 2 reasons, and we'll watch it, and then I'll come back and tell you why.
Find us on Teams. If you're not on there, reach out to me, and I'll get you on there. And if you want to sign up to play, they may still be accepting players. So reach out, let me know, and stab well.
So that was probably 2 or 3 months in. It looks like we were using Microsoft Teams as our primary method of communication at that time. And that was the first instance of Stabwell that I could find. Okay. What was interesting is it was Stabwell and then about 2 or 3 minutes on staying safe. So it should be stab well, stay safe, but that doesn't flow as well as stay safe, stab well. So I think we've improved on that one. And then David, to your point, this one comes towards the fall. I think this was late summer, early fall of 2020.
It's this, peculiar sort of fun that we all really like, right?
That 2020 really brings out in all of us.
I mean, we like this game because we like forming social relationships that we then manipulate for strategic purposes. And apparently we also like to spend an entire day watching other people do that and critiquing their performance at it. So, there's the diplomacy has this reputation of ending friendships. There is a category of person for whom it forms and strengthens friendships. And it's fun for me to be part of that. And I think you guys enjoy that as well.
Yeah, likewise.
Absolutely.
So by that time, you can see a noticeable improvement in the quality of the tech. You can see an improvement in just how relaxed people are being on screen. And by that time, from what I can see, we'd kind of settled into what really became the foundation of what we have today. So I think a couple points that I wanted to talk about for virtual play, kind of to put a pin in that one, was a lot of that was being led by the Minnesota club, and then London was doing a lot also in parallel, two separate paths, and then those kind of started to coalesce. Bill Hackenbrack built the vWDC Discord server. I think that was a very big step in bringing community together. We also made connections with the diplomacy briefing, and the diplomacy briefing helped us get connected into Nexus for a lot of the extended deadline community. And so I think them being on Discord already, and then the connection with diplomacy briefing, that kind of helped coalesce everyone into Discord. And then I think the last thing that was kind of the aha moment that kind of brought virtual play together seems obvious now, but at the time it was novel. The idea of having rooms for each country, naming those rooms, giving them some personality. We did a little test early on where we just had, like, you only need 3 rooms and then everybody can talk. But we found once you give everyone their own room and you name them in a way that people associate, oh, this one's mine, this is the Hagia Sophia or whatever, like that helps create like engagement. And so people started to use it, and that just kind of took off. So I think a lot of that experimentation kind of came together, and like you said, David, it happened really, really fast. People were iterating quickly, and we were desperate for community, and we found ways to make it happen, which I think is an amazing testament to humans in general. I think there's some lessons that we can take about humanity from that experience.
It's almost like necessity is the mother of invention. I don't know if that's ever been said before, but you know, there's 2 other acronyms I want to throw in here about the year 2020 that I don't think we could emphasize too much. And those 2 acronyms are VDL and DBNI. I mean, we can't talk about what happened in the early days of DBN without talking about those 2 things, don't you think?
Yeah, and this is where Zach Moore really comes into the picture. So Zach Moore is one of the co-founders of the network. He's taken an extended leave of absence at the moment, which is why he's not on the on this broadcast with us. But he was an official co-founder, and he had the vision to create a league, a global league out of the virtual games that were happening that he was organizing with the Minnesota hobby. And he called it the Virtual Diplomacy League, and considered the early Weasel and Minnesota games to be the first games in that league season. And we developed a logo together, and he figured out the format of the monthly games, and having different time slots for all of the that were convenient for anybody anywhere in the world. And then that became the sort of flagship event that we would cover regularly, which eventually led to League Night, I think just in year 2, right, Bryan?
Yeah, League Night was year 2. We decided to split those out so we could focus one group of people, just frankly for scale. The events started picking up. There were so many of them. We needed for quality of life for people to be able to kind of spread the load a little bit. But then it also kind of allowed us to develop some personality within the shows. And I think that was a healthy step for the community.
Yeah, I remember, Bryan, when you came to me and said that you had this idea for League Night as like a separate show, and it would have its own like color, its own styling, and sort of its own branding. I remember you being a little nervous, asking me about that, like it might hurt my feelings or something, that you didn't want it to be Game Day Live, which had become the sort of the brand for our tournament coverage. And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was such a great idea. And also, it gave you the chance to really personalize in your own way, this particular thing. We also need to talk about Deadline.
That's exactly where I was going to. Yep.
Speaking of fiefdoms and personalization, we'll get to the DBNI in a second, but Deadline was a huge part of that first year of DBN. And David, you jumped on that immediately. As soon as as soon as the idea for DBN was being put out there, you immediately came to us and said that if it's going to be a network, it has to have a news show. Every good network has a news show. And yeah, you conceived of Deadline. We got Zach to create the opening, which is still being used. That honestly felt, from a video production perspective, felt like our grand accomplishment for all of DBN was putting that video together, that intro.
I distinctly remember when we released that first episode, and the video, Tanya Gill said something like, "What the hell is this?" I mean, it just blew her away, blew all of us away. That promo and just the concept of it, it was cool. It's cool.
Bryan, did you find the music for that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
It was just perfect. I remember when I heard it for the first time, I was like, yes, 100% yes.
Yeah. And David, I mean, I went back and was looking through the history, and Deadline, our very first broadcast was May, the official broadcast for not when we were experimenting with DixieCon, but it was Boston Massacre. And then, I'm sorry, that was in June, and Deadline was in July. Right. So you were immediate with that. And I remember listening to Ambien Kaner's podcast for the Diplomacy podcast, and they were commenting about, oh man, they created this like news broadcast, like he's this professional sounding presenter, and they're like, oh, it's kind of cool. And I was like, man, that really is.
Actually, the other day I was in stitches. You know why I was in stitches?
Why?
Because I opened up the Diplomacy Broadcast Network's most recent Diplomacy cast, the Deadline news.
Oh, yeah.
And there's David Hood.
Yep.
Talking to us like a presenter, like someone out of
He looks
MSNBC.
very good, doesn't he?
Yeah, MSNBC.
Yep.
Or maybe CNN.
David, you brought some gravitas that was lacking between Brandon and I. And
I think that just means I'm older. I think that's good. I think you're just trying to make fun of my age, is what you're really doing.
Well,
no,
it's legitimize.
Yeah, you quickly became what we called the Walter Cronkite of DBN, right? And you did for us what Walter Cronkite did for CBS, which was to connect us to like bigger themes and in a way that people like could take seriously. And you've done that, I think, for like the hobby at large as well. You are our connection to eras in the past that you knew intimately and can speak to, eloquently. And you do that, for us at events, and you do that on Deadline. And we are all the better for it. It has been a huge service. And if the only reason you're not officially a co-founder is because we didn't tell you about it before we did it. Because if we had mentioned it to you, you would have said, I want to do a news show, and we would have said yes, and you just would have been a co-founder. So you were like an almost co-founder.
I am just glad to be anywhere near you co-founder dudes. That's what I was going to say. But no, I did look on Deadline partially as a news. Let's keep each other up to date on what's happening in the world of diplomacy. But also the connection to the past has always mattered to me. And I distinctly remember the second episode we did in August. I did an interview with Melinda Holly, which was an old school player. I mean, that I played with back in the 80s. And she was, everybody in the 80s and 90s would have known Melinda Holly immediately because they would have played probably 10 games with her in the postal world. So it was fun for me to bring people like that back into the hobby and connect them with the new players. And I've been trying to do that as part of what I do ever since. And it is kind of fun for me. It's nostalgic for me, but it's also, I think, important.
Yeah, and that speaks to what we were talking about last month when we were talking about the importance of DipCon, is how diplomacy is one of those unique games where we're part of a legacy. And I think that's something that you've helped establish on this broadcast network, where our goal was to build community. And I think a big part of that is building that connection to the past and hopefully laying a foundation for the future.
And of course, not just a connection to the past, but a connection among or between various sub hobbies that we have. So we've always tried to focus on extended deadline people and places and things all across the ocean from each other and all that sort of thing to try to bring all that together. But speaking of legacy, DB&I to me is one of the most important things that has arisen.
So David, we would get to that, but I'm not going to let you get away without a clip from your
I was trying to avoid this.
I know, I can tell you were trying. So
I was.
Here, I'm
going to attempt to segue out of the hell out of here.
No, this one, you were talking about the different sub elements of the hobby, and I think that is appropriate for this little clip.
For our top story tonight, we take a look at the current state of the diplomacy hobby, both online and face-to-face. With many diplomacy players stuck at home due to coronavirus restrictions, otherwise disparate groups from around the world have come together to play in tournaments traditionally held in person. Online communities have seen a surge in new interest. Later in the broadcast, we'll talk with Russ Dennis of the Diplomacy Briefing newsletter and host a roundtable on the future of the hobby with leading organizers. But first, a look at headlines from around the world of diplomacy.
So David, from the very onset, the discussion about bringing different groups of the hobby together from moment one is something that I've very much appreciated about what Deadline brings to this show.
Well, I enjoy doing it, to be perfectly honest.
We can tell. But yes, so David, you were kind of alluding to the Diplomacy Broadcast Network Invitational.
Speaking of things that bring various things together.
Yeah. Brandon, this was kind of your brainchild initially, and I know we were kind of bouncing back and forth, but what do you remember about those early days of conversation about the DB&I?
Honestly, my recollection is I just said it sort of offhand to you, like, should we do an invitational tournament? And you were just like, yes. Like, you jumped on it so hard. So I might have had the first moment, but you had like the first big thoughts about it. And it all came together very quickly. I think we recognized that since everybody was being connected through the virtual hobby and through DBN, that to have like something that they could all focus on for an entire season just felt right, and to have like a kind of a Super Bowl event at the end that would be a capstone championship idea, it just felt kind of right, and this is we love these competitions. We like tournaments that combine single games into multi-game competitions, and then we just this thing that was combine all the tournaments into one further competition. It just felt like the hobby was hungry for it, and people have tried to do things like this, like Grand Prix, for example, or there was a Masters series that would happen every few years, but they were all sort of loose and weren't necessarily taken seriously as like a season-ending championship. But the reaction was immediate. Everybody was interested, and it definitely built excitement to a crescendo. So maybe if we can talk about that, but first, do you have memories about the early discussions about it?
I was just very excited to have this idea tournament of tournament winners.
Yeah,
that was the thing. That was the moment for me. And I was like, yes, what a cool thing. And then the rest of it was just a lot of logistics. Like, how do you make such a thing work? How do you make it fair? We looked at so many different structures and sports and things. And I remember landing on golf as our primary proxy for kind of how to build a framework. And it ended up working out pretty well. I mean, we've tweaked it a little bit every year, but other than the big revision that we had when we switched to the elimination rounds for everything, otherwise it's fairly similar to how we initially started it. And I just love this concept of being able to bring players not only from different parts of the world, but from different formats of play together. And I won't say that you're bringing the very best players. I think that's like people in sports have been arguing about, like, is Michael Jordan really the best in the modern era kind of thing. Like what we can say is that,
as if there's a debate about that, but keep going.
I get, as a Chicagoan now, I have to agree. But the idea of being able to bring this community together in one event and to be able to have it at such scale and to be able to present it in such a public way, the whole idea, like, we've been there, showcase has been a big part of the diplomacy hobby for years. I remember the diplomatic pouch is where I kind of got really excited about diplomacy when I was first learning to play competitively. And they had a little tiny section up there called Showcase or something like that.
Yep.
And there was a game called God's Stew. And I remember reading the press of these players and just seeing the level and quality of play being such leagues beyond what I could possibly imagine. And I had been playing for years with house games, but like, to realize there was so much depth to this game and to be able to see it on display, that's what I was hoping to be able to put on display. And then to be able to have that pressure and that tension that builds from not just one event, but a year of building towards something, and to have it pay off. Like, I will never know what it's like to be in an elite sports event like Super Bowl or something like that, but to be able to create that kind of investment and the payoff that you get from making that investment is so big. It's just been a blast as a observer to watch, and as someone who's never participated myself, I can only imagine what that must feel like for the players who have invested so much time. And that's why I'm always so grateful that we have this chance and opportunity. And DBNI is all about our players. Like, we are lucky to be able to like, we put in the work. It's a lot of work. It's exhausting work to put that together, but we are so lucky that our players are willing to go through all of that to give us one hell of a show.
Yeah, I think the first DBNI was so electric for us as broadcasters. I think that was one of the things that really took me by surprise, especially the championship game. There was so much energy around the semifinals. People were excited. It was grueling. And that's a feature of the DBNI that we have come to understand, is that it is quite grueling as a player. But then to get that championship game, a week later, like, that's where, like, the playoffs to the Super Bowl feeling came in. The Super Bowl is traditionally 2 weeks after, so there's this lots of time for hype and building it up. And so we created a gap like that really did sort of get people interested and excited, and people started talking about, like, who was in it, and there was discussion about how the games would go. And then the game itself, we turned it sort of last minute into, like, a celebration of the hobby. It occurred to us that there was an opportunity there, and we had David Hood. This was for the semifinals, I should say. David Hood, we asked you to come up with some hobby figures, historical hobby figures that we could pay homage to. And so you did all the research for us, and you got 8 of them for us. We knew Alan Calamer was going to be the honoree for the championship game. But you got 8 of them for us, and it was amazing to talk about them, to put their names up there, to name the boards after them, and then to talk about them and remember what they were like. And I think that year you came on and actually did the discussion for each one of them. And right. I know that because we got you on the very last one on screen, and we pulled a fast one on you. The honoree for that game wasn't the person you thought it was going to be. It was you. And I remember we made you get teary-eyed. And
you did not. There's no evidence of that. There's no evidence.
I'm going to find that clip right now, and we're going to put that on screen because I do think that is one of the great moments of the DBNI.
The hobby legend that we want to honor tonight with our final board is someone who has not only been making contributions to the hobby for decades, but is continuing to do so today. This legend started playing diplomacy nearly 40 years ago, has won 2 North American championships, is the director of the longest running tournament in North America, if not the world, and has served as the editor of Diplomacy World, and is currently the anchor of the only network news show ever devoted to diplomacy. This legend is, of course, Mr. David Hood.
I'm actually a little bit speechless here, which is
mission accomplished.
I'm not actually sure what to say here. I don't feel actually in the same category as some of the folks that we have memorialized and honored lately, but I appreciate this very much. It is true that the DBNI semifinals and finals is a cool payoff to the whole season. It's also cool that the DBNI has, dare I say it, a countdown to the DBNI semifinals, where you got people trying to qualify for the event, and there's a hype about how you're doing, and are you in the top 28? How far away are you? The bubbleology, the bubble watch, all that stuff is cool, and that's another thing. We should talk about the countdown show, which only happens 2 or 3 times a year, but it is still an integral part of DBN in helping to build the hype of, a reason we did this was to encourage people to play in all these events around the world or in virtual, face-to-face, extended deadline. And so by having that hype function, it allows people to say, well, actually, that's true. I need to sign up for this other thing because I need to play some more games so I can maybe qualify for the DBNI.
Yeah, the countdown was the brainchild of obviously Zach and I, but Kevin O'Kelly was a huge part in building out Countdown. Kevin and I and Brandon, I think you to some extent have had periods of our life at least where we watched a lot of ESPN. And we were just trying to think through, like, hey, we've got these events, we've got scoring, we've got all this, like, what else could we do for a broadcast network? Like, well, we need to have like the personality segment where they're just talking about like whoever's on top, like a scoring kind of countdown show, kind of like a bubble watch for the NCAA or something like that. Like, yeah, that would be a lot of fun. And then I did not know at the time that Zachary Moore had this wrestler voice inside of him. And as like the very first broadcast that we went on and he just turned this thing on out of nowhere, it just unlocked what that show was.
Get into the diplomacy spirit and stuff your stockings with supply centers. Some call it the naughty list. We call it the DBNI Top 28. This is the DBNI Countdown Show.
It became irreverent. It became like all sorts of silliness. And it just unlocked a lot of fun that I think was not lacking, but it gave us a chance to highlight that aspect. And the other thing, and I think this is the secret sauce for Countdown, diplomacy players are narcissistic. We love hearing our names in lights, or seeing our names in lights. And so anytime the more names that we could list, the more likely people were gonna watch it. So but like that was the theory, and so we kind of started out doing that, and then it ended up turning into something that I think people genuinely like was meaningful and really enjoyed. And I will say, of all of the shows that I've done, that one is definitely my favorite. And we are working on our first countdown of the 2025 season. So that will either have just released, hopefully, around the time that you're watching this, or about to release. So it should be close.
Yeah, we have to pay homage not just to Zach Moore's wrestler voice, but also the other revelation about him, which was this razor sharp Twain-esque wit that none of us saw coming. But
Yeah, he's actually kind of a boring dude. So the fact that he was able to bring that out for a countdown was, surprising but good.
Like shock. I mean, he had some real zingers. You did too, Bryan, but Zach was more consistent with it. I mean, there were many times where I just covered my mouth. I was like, did he just say that? Brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
Well, another thing we should talk about is what happened in year 2, which I think is pretty significant, year 2 of DBN, which is face-to-face came back at the end of that year. There was the DipCon 2021 in Vermont in Carnage, and that would be our first attempt to do coverage of face-to-face games. Now that was different. I mean, we talked about how I was going to be there live. Some other people were going to be in the studio doing the coverage, and I was going to do some stuff there live. And we were trying to figure out physically how were we going to collect the game information. We were going to make people write their orders on special sheets, and then we were going to type them into Backstabber. We just had all these thoughts about it. Of course, very quickly we realized that wasn't going to work, but also very quickly the concept of having someone playing the game, but also sandboxing the game so it could be used for later for face-to-face play became a standard part, actually, again, relatively quickly, of the face-to-face hobby, which up to then had been missing completely because it was shut down. So what do you guys think about how DBN transitioned into covering face-to-face games?
Do you remember whose idea the sandboxing was, Bryan or David?
I don't know whose idea. I know that Sabi helped really get a workflow, get it organized, and I don't think we would be where we are. And I think that's an opportunity for me to just kind of talk through. We've got a lot of people you see faces on air, but there's also a lot of people in the DBN community behind the scenes that have done a lot of work to make it what it is today. And I think that's a perfect example. Sabi's just done so much work behind the scenes to help with that sandboxing and to make that workflow something that's repeatable. And it's not easy. It's not easy.
I do remember there were lots of ideas thrown around, like recording order sheets. One that was particular to me that I know I talked to you, David, about was to have these little inexpensive security cameras pointed at the tables.
Yes.
That would could also you could also hear voices. I had this idea that there would be somebody off site who would be watching the game basically and recording the moves. And David, did I even send you a camera once to try that? I did.
You did. And we actually took that with me to Vermont. And I can't remember exactly what happened there, but we realized that wasn't feasible either for whatever reason. I think it really was, as I'm thinking about it here, I think it was Sabi. Sabi and I were there live physically at the event trying to figure out what we were going to do to get the game information. And I think it might have been Sabi that came up with the idea of somebody sandboxing all the games that morphed later into somebody who was actually playing in each game as opposed to as opposed to an independent party, someone who was actually playing in the game, doing it, which of course is now how we capture that. It's kind of astounding how easy it has been, although it's not always been perfect, but it has been relatively easy to get people to volunteer to do that. And without that, we can't do coverage of face-to-face events on DBN. They just can't do it without the sandbox.
Yeah, I think we had concerns in the beginning that the older school face-to-face players who were less tech savvy would really resist it, would resist certainly doing it, but also like the potential that it might slow the game down at all. We were worried that they would have no tolerance for that. And I think part of the impetus for that too was this feeling that a lot of face-to-face players had kind of been left out of the virtual era just because they couldn't take to the technology. Yes. And so we really wanted to prioritize welcoming them back and including them. And I think what's happened is that there's just been an influx of a lot of newer players who are tech savvy, comfortable with the Backstabber interface. They've played online maybe before they've even come into face-to-face. And I think also some of us, this is certainly true for me, actually find it kind of helpful to enter the orders, like to actually be the one entering them. Like you just sort of, if you're used to the backstabber interface, then you get this sort of tactile feel for the orders as you're putting them in, and you get a little bit more sense of the game. I will say though that like it often happens that there are orders that affect what my game, and I kind of get distracted by thinking about them after I've entered them, and I'll miss the next set of orders and have to make people repeat. But that's another story.
Well, that is another story. I think another thing to talk about in terms of the growth and sort of development of DBN as an institution is that we have gone way beyond our original group of people involved, and analysts and physical locations of where we cover tournaments. I mean, in the early days, it really just was North American face-to-face tournaments that we were covering because there wasn't a lot of other opportunities to cover other places. That has completely changed in the last couple of years. Well, the last 2 or 3 years, which is awesome, don't you think?
Yeah, I think of all the things that I am. There's many things I'm proud of about Diplomacy Broadcast Network, but seeing it blossom into a truly global hobby that has leadership and engagement from the global hobby, that is not just the three of us. We're not the ones that are running everything. My dream from year one was that one day we would be able to have teams in every time zone that could cover stuff, and we could be a truly global network. And that dream is a reality at this point. And then the other related aspect to that is the growth within the extended deadline community. That has always been very near and dear to my heart. I played first face-to-face with friends and family, but my next step and my first foray into competitive diplomacy was through extended deadline and press play. And so I have always wanted to make sure if we were going to truly be a diplomacy broadcast network and not just a North American face-to-face or virtual hobby, that was an important part of the community that needed to be represented. And so I'm also extremely proud that we've partnered with the Diplomats. We've got them on our channel now, and that they are able to give us that extended format, not just with the extended deadline community that they're plugged into, but also a different style and a different way of presenting these games where they're going very in depth, move by move in a single game rather than lots of games. And there's no one right way to play diplomacy. There's lots of ways to enjoy this game and to learn this game. And I love being able to have that represented and to have a different format with another show that lets us learn. Like I learn every single time I listen to that group. It's really good stuff. So seeing that growth both globally and through the extended deadline communities is something I'm extremely proud of.
Yeah, I think for me, the way that some people, I think, really dive in and start taking on leadership and organizational roles within DBN has been really, really gratifying to see. And really, I imagine that like people who run large organizations who see like people blossom in work roles and career, like sort of see them come alive and see them develop new skills and sort of take on responsibilities and flourish with them. I think we get a little taste of that. Someone like Kevin O'Kelly, who came in and like just started doing lots and lots of stuff with organizing, behind the scenes producing, helping a lot of stuff that wasn't on screen, but really helped improve what was the on-screen product.
Completely indispensable, really.
It was unbelievable. I mean, especially when we're doing events, broadcasts that are going on while the event is finishing. Kevin was starting to get information from the TD and relaying it to the host, and helping the host craft what order the game should be shown in, for example. So creating a story and a narrative for the broadcast, incredibly important. And so Kevin sort of like worked his way into being a leader at DBN, and we brought him onto the board because of it. We've seen that happen again with Michalis Kamaridis, who, just started taking on responsibility and asked for more. And now, he helps do a lot of organizing, which is critical. Like DBN would not work without these people contributing the way that they are. And we, Ed Sullivan wanted to bring the diplomats in now. And so, someone like him is taking on more responsibilities. So, and to see the newer analysts too, really excited to join DBN, is also just really fun. And it helps us feel like we're doing something worthwhile here. And and I'll say one last thing about that. Like, I think there's going to come a point where we are ready to step aside from this. And we really, I think all three of us want DBN to keep going after we no longer are active in it. And, I have a lot of hope for that with, how interested and hardworking people are with it.
I'm not sure I could tell you now who all the DBN personalities are. We have so many that are willing to come in and help with various things, both on and off screen. Hal Shield helping off screen. And frankly, he's on screen now doing some special correspondent interviews for Deadline. So it's just an example, but we've got so many that I'm not sure I could give you a complete list.
Yeah, we've got 37 people right now.
Okay. So you can give the complete. Okay, good.
To this, it is definitely grown into something much larger than what I ever envisioned that it would become, and we are definitely part of something. Not like, yes, we founded, but at this point, it has grown larger than us. And it has turned into something that I hope is exactly what my vision was from day one, something that would be of service to this community that I love. It's just a way to give back. And I'm so grateful to all members of the DBN team for their contributions, and looking forward to the contributions of those who will be contributing in the future as well.
The future is bright. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but the future is bright.
I think a natural thing to talk about here, though, is the broadcaster brawl, which after we were all so exhausted from the first DBNI coverage that we didn't want to do anything for several weeks. But there was enough clamor at that point for some revenge on the commentators from the viewers. The viewers, we were still figuring out how to give commentary and critiques of people's play in a way that was easy to hear, or not too hard to hear. I think there were times we were too critical, and we had to figure out the right level for that. So I think there were, and a lot of, the people we were critiquing were all our friends too. A lot of them were anyway. And so they wanted to give it back. And so there was a clamor for an exhibition game where we, they would get to watch us play and talk about us. And because a lot of us weren't playing at the same time in that first year, we were just doing DBN. Right. And so we arranged this broadcaster brawl for like a month after the DBNI. And we just figured out how to make it a charity event. And that was so fun. That was just a really electric time. The viewers loved it, being able to critique us. We raised, I think, about $4,000. We couldn't do it the next year because we were so exhausted. But then we did it the year after that, raised over $6,000. And now it's become an every other year thing. We just had our third version of it, raised over $8,000. Blows my mind. But that's a real testament to how engaged the community is, and how much they want to use that to be able to give back, not just to the community itself, but to the broader community of people.
Oh, that's totally right. And of course you enjoyed it, Brandon, because Brandon stabbed the E's. You won the first one.
I did.
So of course you enjoyed it. But no, it's an awesome thing, and I think people really enjoyed it a lot. Another thing that DBN has been involved in particularly during the virtual era, was Media Wars, where DBN, along with several other content creators, played an exhibition game and then did the content on various platforms. I think showing the connection that we were trying to forge, not just for fans of DBN, but to show that there were other content creators out there that we all wanted to connect with each other.
I would say it's been very interesting to me learning YouTube a little bit. It's definitely its own kind of animal. And first, I want to shout out Marcus Zylstra, runs Diplostrats. He has been so helpful, especially in our very early days, like very, very early days, in helping get our feet wet, dip our toes into the YouTube water. But one thing that I've really learned is that YouTube is very much, you can say what you want about the algorithm, but it is a rising waters raise all ships situation. The more diplomacy activity, the more all diplomacy sites go up in viewership and content. So, I mean, diplomacy is so niche. And one of the pieces of advice for YouTube is to like find a niche and then like really drill down into it, make very specific content for your audience. And that's how you're going to get your engagement, blah, blah, blah. We're so niche that any, like even a little tiny trickle of water helps just raise everything up. So Media Wars has just been a really good way to help connect other media content creators for this game, and it has absolutely been helpful for all of us. Some of us, like us, I think we benefited probably a little more than some of the bigger sites out there, but it's just any time that you get engagement in diplomacy content, it's good for everyone. And frankly, it's just so much fun to be able to hear these content creators all give their sides of the same story. It's like real reality TV. Like there's no publisher out there or producer who's like creating these fake scripts. Like people are just generally going out there and genuinely saying what they think about what's going on. And it's so much fun to hear that, and for each person to have their own voice. I'm really glad that we were able to be part of that event.
Oh yeah,
I love the shout out real quick to Marcus Zylstra because he was awesome in those early years. There's a project that we never were able to realize, but did a bunch of work on it with Marcus, where we interviewed all of the participants in the first DBNI. And Marcus was in the game, but he got eliminated really quickly, so it wasn't a conflict of interest. And he was going to make a Chris Martin style set of videos, one for each phase, and we were going to call it Afterburn, which is such a good name that I feel like we have to make a show called Afterburn that's about this. It turned out to be too much work for us, so we need a bigger production team to make it happen. Calling House Shield, but promissory note. Afterburn someday.
All right. Now that's a good segue into what I was getting ready to bring up next, because we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present. Now let's talk about the future of DBN. What ideas do we have out there, not just Afterburn, but other things that we might be looking forward to in the future? Anybody got anything they want to tease?
Siobhan and I have talked about doing a podcast together for a long time, and we finally got our act together, and we have recorded an episode and another half of an episode that ended up being a postscript for that episode because it took so long to get it done that we needed a postscript, and now it's taking too long to get that out, but it's going to happen at some point. It's called Off the Board, and we will get our act together and get that published and get it going regularly. But that's an exciting project for Siobhan and me, and for hopefully for DBN.
Oh, I think it'll be great to have an audio, and we've talked about this, to have an audio product to go along with which is essentially a video, video thing. Having both is awesome. Bryan, anything you want to mention?
Yeah, Brandon knows that I've got tons of ideas. And I will throw lots of things against the wall and see which ones stick. A lot of times those ideas, it's the eyes bigger than the stomach kind of situation. So I'm going to throw a couple things out there with caveats that these are still very ideas based right now, and we'll see which ones actually come to fruition. Maybe 5 years from now, we'll see some of them. But one of the main ones right now that I've got my eye on, I'm starting to work on a redesign of our website. It is grown to a point where I think it needs some organization and updating. We have kind of, as a board, been coalescing on this idea that, like, what is the mission of the Diplomacy Broadcast Network? And we're kind of honing in on this idea that we are here to create places for people to play, for watching what we do, and for people to grow. And that growth is both in strategy and in community. So play, watch, grow being kind of the themes for the site. And we're going to try and build our content around that. And along with that, I think that exposes some content gaps in what we're offering today. So I'm very interested in creating more evergreen content, something that would have been useful for me when I was learning the game. Like, how do I get involved? How can I understand some foundations? Are there any shortcuts, the vocabulary, just that kind of stuff that's going to forever be useful for this game. So we want to place for something like that. So I don't know if that will be me or someone else, but that is definitely something that we've got some projects.
Yeah, I think I've showed you a little bit. There is a top secret mission on DBN that is finally on the verge of coming to fruition. We're calling it for the moment Diplomacy 101, a series of videos that have been led by Robert Schupa and Tanya Gill, and Hal Schild, producer for that as well. And those are exciting, and they're going to be very short form, 2 or 3 minutes. And a series of them that are meant to be a quick introduction to playing the game online, and so forth. So yes, please keep an eye out for that. We will get that done at some point.
And just one project that I want to mention is that we've talked internally about doing a different show for coverage of club games. So we're hoping to get that off the ground. The working title right now is Club Hub. And it would be a similar concept to League Night, but it's focused more, instead of on virtual leagues, on club play and possibly clubs themselves. We may just not only cover games, but actually cover the clubs and talk about what they do and where they do it and how they do it, and have people on to talk about that. So that's another project. One thing I would say for those of you out in diplomacy, in the diplomacy verse, we actually need you to help us. If you want to get involved in helping to get any of these ideas off the ground, or to become a sideline reporter for our coverage, or a DBN analyst, anything that you want to help, a technical assistant, if you're a tech person, by all means contact us. We would love to get you involved in what we're doing, because this won't happen without help. None of these ideas is going to happen without help.
Yes, please. Come host a show.
Yeah. All right, guys, I think this has been a great conversation. I want to bring it to a close and ask you for any final thoughts about DBN at 5 years, starting with you, Bryan.
I am going to play this video clip to close my segment out. We were just trying to find a way to play some diplomacy. And this is what it turned into. And I could not be more proud. I don't share this hobby with a lot of people in my day-to-day life, because it's not something that would be relevant. But this is something that I am proud enough to share with everybody that I know. So that was a clip from the very end of the very first Diplomacy Broadcast Network Invitational. We've all got, well, some of us have our COVID hair, and we've got the exhaustion from putting that on, but also the joy. And that feeling that I had then sticks with me today. I am so proud of what this community has come together and coalesced into. And I'm grateful for each of you for being a big part of that, and to everybody who is watching and has been part of this community for all these years along with us.
Yeah, it comes down to people, sort of becoming proficient broadcasters and commentators has been fun and fulfilling in its own way. And there's some I think there's some pride that we can take in having created a product that people find, interesting and educational and compelling. But when it comes down to it, that's all just details. The thing that really matters to me and to both of you, I know, is just the people. Having communication with these people, having a community with them, knowing that you have helped create like a town square that people want to be part of, and that it's something that brings people together that's just it's for me the essence of being a person, and we do that in our daily lives, in different ways. And this is just a way we get to do it in the context of this particular curious pursuit of diplomacy that brings these weirdos together, these people who like this game, that allows us to, like you showed me in the clip, that allows us to create relationships and then manipulate them in interesting and explicit ways. And we all take pleasure in that, and we take pleasure in watching other people do it, either well or poorly, and talking about it. And that's the opportunity that unites us, but it's the uniting of us in the community that's ultimately what is really fascinating and most fulfilling. And I'm so grateful for that, and for you, and for both of you, and for all of the people who are part of DBN, and for all the people who watch DBN and who play in these games. So grateful for all of you. And I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. And another thing that really makes me feel good about what we've done is when I hear a person come up to me at a face-to-face event or contact me online and says, I am learning about this game because of DBN. I am playing this game now because of DBN. I'm going to tournaments now because of DBN. That's awesome, because those experiences are part of what has made my life rich. And the idea of being able to share that with other people and helping to enrich their lives with this game that I love is extremely gratifying. And also, thanks guys for letting me be involved in this. And I just, it was y'all kind of brought me in a little bit later, and I just have loved getting to know both of you and our other DBN people. It's just been a great experience, just from a friendship point of view. Both of you have brought me brightness and bliss, but I'm still waiting on Belgium. Still waiting on Belgium. All right, guys, thank you so much for being on the show once again, and let's keep going with this DBN thing.
Yeah.
I think it might turn into something.
Here's to the next 5 years.
Thanks to all of you watching at home. We hope you have enjoyed this broadcast of Deadline. If you have news, ideas for features, or feedback of any kind, please feel free to send an email to info@diplobn.com, or you can drop me a line directly using davidhood@dixicon.com. To review all of our broadcast offerings, visit our website, www.diplobn.com. This is David Hood, signing off. I wish you brightness and bliss, and, of course, Belgium.